Chapter 21. Besties. Jane Turner sat thinking of her first encounters and experiences with Marcus Johnson. They took place in March 12 years ago. Marcus Johnson worked with her at Gwenvale Children's Hospital. On Jane's second morning shift, when she was age 17, a registered nurse asked her to wait outside a permanent residence room. Two nurses and Marcus came out of the room. Jane's first impression of Marcus was that she felt the need to ask herself why a man was dressed up as a combination of Edward the Cat and a courageous knight in full plate armor. You must be Jane Turner. Give yourself a moment to relax before you go inside. If you need to cry, it is okay. We are human after all, Marcus said, sobbing. Jane saw a pink room decorated with balloon animals and colored streamers. The assistant nurses cleaned the girl's deceased body and even placed fresh sheets on her bed. That was Jane's first time seeing someone deceased lying in their bed. It was overwhelming to her seeing as the girl was her age. The deceased girl had lived full-time at Gwenvale Children's Hospital her entire life since her family died tragically. Her sudden death sparked a new friendship and bond with Marcus, who was 10 years Jane's senior. The acting mental health registered nurse Gordon Kirkham approached, talking in a distinct Pommy accent. Marcus, are you working your second job today at the Golden Sun Country Club? Marcus smiled. I will make it to work. It's only a 1-hour walk for me. Jane interrupted, grimacing as she said, I will drive the stranger to his other job before my shift starts, as long as he can clock out early so I can make it back in time for my shift. Gordon Kirkham had written a must-read novel, Random Reflections from a Loony Bin. At that time, he had other novels coming out soon. Jane never hesitated to trade shifts with Marcus, because he and Gordon could both talk a Jehovah's Witness to death. They both talked more in one night than she could in a week. This made some shifts unbearable for her. On the drive to his second job, Marcus talked about cosplay, changing the topic after Jane had asked about why he had no driver's license. Marcus explained how he'd gotten involved with cosplay once his son, Hope, turned 2 years old. Yes, he was referring to Hope Johnson, Desmond's prodigy from Emerald. They were an inseparable duo, dressing up for children's hospital visits as Edward the Cat and Rapscallion Devil. Hope looked so cute dressed as a little devil. Even the visiting vicar was friendly, saying a warm and welcoming hello. Jane had witnessed that the little devil was real, just like others had seen that Edward was real, based on an actual Sphinx catfolk. Seeing Marcus display such respect toward life, death, and family brought Jane and him closer together as besties. Marcus was married but never spoke of his long-awaited upcoming divorce or even mentioned his ex-wife's name. His religion was the only reason he'd stayed married since he was 18. Marcus just wanted to walk away after working out a reasonable plan instead of fighting endlessly. Little problems became bigger problems, and these bigger problems were still not resolved years later. Marcus filed for divorce and got himself a small home in September of that year to do something he'd wanted, finally living his long-awaited childhood dream of writing fictional stories. Inspired by popular culture conventions, Marcus realized his interests were more common and accepted in today's world. He was captivated upon seeing so many walks of life at all ages and with various interests under the same banner, not judging, hating, or discriminating. Instead, Marcus saw a welcoming community that truly embraced diversity, although it wasn't perfect. This was good for Hope at age 3 to be involved in. Marcus judged less and loved more despite any differences. To Jane's surprise, before he was a parent, Marcus admitted to having been a seriously judgmental bigot, fearing what he did not understand. These days in modern society, popular culture was mainstream. This may not make Marcus look good, but at the Golden Sun Country Club, Eric Fitzgerald called the police because Marcus had some chocolate mint for staff members in a sealed sandwich bag. The herb called chocolate mint was not an actual form of marijuana, however, a police report was still made. After that, Marcus yelled at Fitzgerald and was about to punch him. Many people asked him why he had done that, because to get a government job like his, one needed a reference from one's current employer. Fitzgerald refused to give Elizabeth a reference so she could attempt a new career path. A second police report was made against Marcus. Silly boy. Marcus quit his old job at the Golden Sun Country Club, focusing on his second job that became his only job, trying to support his ex-wife. He begged for her to sign the divorce papers, and he continued to earn a few bucks. Once Marcus stopped enabling codependency, he began writing about Elizabeth on his night shifts. Jane initially thought she was a character in his novel, but soon enough he explained she was a wonderful woman from his old job whom he'd begun to miss terribly. 15 years his senior, she was very kind and stood by the meek. Gordon Kirkham, who'd written the book about the loony bin, tutored Marcus for free and expected no credit. Marcus's writing, reading, and speaking skills improved. As he started to feel more for Elizabeth, he tried to build up his courage to ask her out. Jane proofread his poetry, and it made her sick to hear his lovey-dovey words for Elizabeth. So, she just skim-read some of the chapters in his manuscript. Jane and Marcus began to work more night shifts together. She would ask him, "So, when are you going to hurry up and take Elizabeth out on a date? It has been 6 months since you two worked together." Marcus explained how his divorce was taking too long to finalize, saying that his ex-wife-to-be still would not sign the divorce papers. "How can I ask Elizabeth out when I have too much baggage from my past that won't hurry up and get resolved? I am trying to save my wife money, keeping the matter out of court." Jane Turner slapped Marcus across the face. He was stunned. "All you talk about night after night is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, Elizabeth, Elizabeth. If you talk about it one more time and do nothing about it, I am going to backhand you. 6 months of long nights hearing the same thing will drive anyone nuts." Major Thorne told Marcus that he would make him his bitch if he didn't hurry up and ask Elizabeth out. Major Thorne dropped by regularly from the military barracks to visit his 2 sons, who remain permanently in intensive care since Zonal Giovanni tried gassing them to death. Marcus enjoyed the benefits of single life. He'd been renting his own place for 6 months. Hope had recently turned 4 years old. Split care of Hope could have worked if Marcus's ex-wife hadn't turned up one night arguing about wanting extra child support payments. He paid her cash in an under-the-table kind of deal instead of paying the money through the proper channels. Marcus even had a form stating that Hope's mother did not accept the child support. Things had to be done her way so that he would look like a real piece of crap. Marcus raised his voice, telling his ex-wife to help work out some sort of reasonable plan since he had only one source of income instead of working 2 jobs. Mind you, he still gave more than half his income to her, intending that the money be put toward building Hope's future. If Jane had had her druthers, she would have told Hope's mother to get a job from day one. But telling her what to do was considered abusive. So, what would anyone do when negotiations seemed pointless and you were about to lose everything unless you decided to behave like a schmuck and use the child as a pawn? Not my problem. This is my house. Go live in the penthouse apartment that you own, Marcus yelled explosively, shoving his ex-wife. That was on July 6th. The next day, police came to investigate Marcus because he had been quite loud when yelling at his ex-wife. Both gave the same truthful statement to the police as her body was checked for injury. To avoid further conflict, Marcus walked away from his home, and his ex-wife moved in with Hope. For some unexplained reason, Zonal and Nigel lived in her apartment rent-free. Marcus was almost financially ruined. It was fortunate that he was still working full-time. Marcus temporarily stayed in a homeless shelter and tried to get help to deal with his psychological pain instead of retaliating further. Seeing as he still had a full-time job, Marcus paid $200 per week to live in a small room at the homeless shelter, where he was only able to fit a single air mattress and 2 backpacks, all the while paying for his ex-wife's mortgage, paying for his former rental, and trying to pay his ex-wife's idea of child support. Marcus already suffered from depression because of the unreasonable negotiations time and time again. Not in his right mind, he was trying not to retaliate. He found himself missing his only son and was barely getting a couple of hours with him alone without his ex-wife interfering. More time would be permitted if he were to pretend to be romantically involved with his ex-wife. Marcus could not see any solutions to his problems after countless attempts to find a resolution. Jane had stolen FBI evidence to protect her friend. She preferred to keep it secret. She had a tape recording dated 2 weeks after the incident when things had gotten heated. The following was on the recording. "Operator, I need to report a suicide. I request the police and an ambulance," Marcus said, crying heavily. "Can you please identify the name of the deceased?" "It's my suicide." Marcus cried heavier, struggling to breathe. Marcus's phone cut out as he received a text message from Elizabeth. "Hey, Marcus. I have not heard from you in a while. All of us at work are wondering how you and Hope are doing. When you're able to catch up for a coffee, let me know." This moment changed Marcus's life forever. While catching up with Elizabeth over coffee, Marcus explained his screwed up and very unusual predicament. Elizabeth gave him good advice that, once implemented, completely empowered him to be a better person despite his past. He listened to Elizabeth, but he wouldn't listen to Jane or the 50-odd people who'd tried to help him, including Peter Richardson. With anyone who's playing a sick game, it stops with them. Sure, your ex-wife is using Hope as a pawn to hurt you emotionally. Play into the game and it will only get worse. Elizabeth, you know me better than anyone else does. I realize now that if I react, then my ex-wife can control me. Then I am playing her game. I need to step back and let the damage happen. Then the truth will come out. Over the course of a few more coffee dates, the two of them talked more, realizing to their surprise that they had a great deal in common. Communication was no problem in this friendship. Marcus finally had the balls to admit to Elizabeth that he often fantasized of being more than her friend. Marcus had gone from hitting rock bottom to be the happiest he had been since Hope's birth once Elizabeth and Marcus became a couple. Waking up at 6 o'clock every morning, mopping the shelter's dining room floor, listening to music on his dumb phone, and eating breakfast with other men who were overcoming various life mishaps, Marcus truly began listening to others and finding a new source of inspiration to write his novels. He intended one day to give back to the shelter that had helped him. As an assistant nurse, Marcus learned and practiced holistic needs. This reflected mostly when it came to palliative care at the end of another's life. He learned to put all differences aside to do a good job of tending to the needs of those for whom he provided care. Marcus did say that the hardest situation he faced was in caring is for Nigel Giovanni on his shifts at Gwenvale Asylum. On the first night, Marcus said he wanted to press a pillow against Nigel's face to end his life, especially since he'd lived in Marcus's ex-wife's apartment, which was one of the reasons Marcus was put out on the street. If Marcus had only known that Nigel had gotten too close to Hope. Who knows how he would have reacted to his sons having been placed in danger. Each night Marcus would text love notes to Elizabeth either from work on his night shift or while lying on his mattress at the shelter. Still unable to get any reasonable cooperation for mediation regarding Hope, Marcus talked to his ex-wife about renting a house, if it was up to her standards, so he could have more access to Hope without her direct involvement. 1 month later, he'd signed a 6-month lease for a 2-bedroom low-set house close to Nankin CBD. On September 22, Marcus, Jane, and other cosplay friends took Hope to see one last movie before Marcus said goodbye for the last time, explaining to his son that he would be absent until a family court judge could make things right. This made Marcus cry every time, knowing he could no longer see his son while being unaware of what twisted games lay ahead. Talking to Elizabeth strengthened his mind and allowed him to look past his own pain. And his ex-wife got the time she needed to heal from the divorce process once it was finalized. 2 months into his relationship, there was still no mediation. Marcus needed to break the news of his relationship with Elizabeth and request that his ex-wife allow some reasonable agreement to fall into place. Marcus said he would only tell her of Elizabeth during a mediation session to protect himself from how she would react. He was still trying to forgive his ex-wife and still hoping to avoid the heavy cost of family court, the new trillion-dollar industry. In an effort to reach an agreement with her, Marcus exchanged texts with his ex-wife. Dark Sparrow had those texts as part of her files. Jane broke the sticker seal since Dark Sparrow had not looked inside Marcus's file. The texts read as follows. 11/14, 11 o'clock. Beast. Are you picking up your stuff from the garage? I stayed out all day, so you can pick it up. 11/14, 11:05. Marcus. Hello. Can you please send me your bank details so I can deposit payment each fortnight? This is the safest and only option as it documents the payments and protects us both. 11/14, 11:07. Beast. I am not talking about that. You need to move your stuff out of my home and go live at the Selham Hotel with Nigel because that house you're renting is too old for Hope to visit you. That money has nothing to do with Hope's childcare fees because the latest automatic debit has bounced. You are a disappointment to your son. 11/14, 15:45. Marcus. I took care of the childcare cost an hour ago. I really need an account number to deposit the money as Peter Richardson requested. 11/14, 15:46. Beast. Okay. 11/14, 15:47. Beast. Please do not fight. This situation is difficult enough as it is. 11/14, 15:59. Marcus. I just saw Peter Richardson. I do not want to fight. I can organize a cab to pick up the stuff at a neutral time to avoid contact. Then she called, and Marcus foolishly answered his cell phone. Jane had told him not to talk over the phone, but did he listen? Little did Marcus realize that Peter Richardson used an app on his phone to record the conversation and send it straight to Jane's father to use as evidence. Marcus needed evidence to protect himself. Following is the recording. A woman is crying over the phone. Hope, that is your daddy on the phone. We love daddy very much. Marcus, I want us to try therapy again with Peter Richardson. I do not want to fight or hurt anyone. Peter Richardson helped me to write a clear message to avoid miscommunication. I had a feeling someone helped you send that message, seeing as your spelling mistakes are absent. She chuckled between sobs. Hope, that is your daddy on the phone. Want to talk to daddy? I have not treated you well over the years, and I should not have pushed you, hit you, or placed a hand on you when emotions were rushing. I did the wrong thing that night. I am still trying to forgive myself for it. God, Marcus, it was nothing. I didn't even bruise. I wanted a strong man to discipline me and pull me into line. This way I can respect you now. Divorce is against God's universal law. We married way too young, and things just could not work out. All this emotional crap needs to stop now because we really need to talk and work out a reasonable plan for Hope. It has been 2 months since we have had contact. Marcus, I do not want to get lawyers involved, because that drains money from Hope. Lawyers make enough money, and they do not need more money for their flashy lifestyle. I agree. That is why I walked away to work things out with a clear mind. We both need to organize an actual mediation to discuss things properly to avoid any miscommunication. I still need to forgive myself for what I have done wrong by hitting you. She begins speaking angrily. If you choose not to get back together, I do understand. But you need to tell me, are you seeing anyone? I have a right to know if you're seeing anyone. Are you in a sexual relationship? Marcus sighs heavily. Yes. Yes, I have a girlfriend. That is why we need to work out a plan. And you need to get a job to support yourself properly because I cannot afford 2 rentals and a mortgage. Marcus's tone is confident. She yells back at Marcus. You are having sex with that teenage girl Jane Turner from work. I need to mention I got Zonal and Nigel involved in your inappropriate divorce and workplace behavior. To think that you are involving yourself with that slut. You're a deadbeat father. I also got my father involved. Goodbye.